Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I am Rick Weaver, your host tonight. Uh, Tonight, I will be joined by Trina and Robert from Middle Tennessee. They've been having a little encounters with Sasquatch on their property there in Middle Tennessee, and they're on tonight to tell you about it. Remember, everyone, if you watch this show tonight, watch it in the future, please hit the subscribe and like button. Show YouTube that you like our content. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to bring them on. Okay, Trina, Robert, y'all there?
Yes,
We're
sir.
here. Hi.
Can you hear us?
Okay, are you there? Yeah,
Yes,
I can
sir.
hear you. All right, folks, why don't you go ahead and kind of tell the viewers a little about what you've been having going on up there.
Sure. I'm going to start with the car explosion. We lived up in the side of a mountain, and one morning around 5 a.m. there was this big explosion, woke us up. So we all go running out with guns and everything. Neighbors did too. And this car kept exploding, like it had multiple explosions. So I run down there, she run down there, and I had my phone with me and my gun, and we're going up through this creek bed alongside the car. I'm down below the car. Car is fully engulfed in flames. And by that time I get to the car, the fire department's pulling down in. So I take pictures of the car because it was pretty cool watching it explode. And as I take pictures of it, I never realized there was a Squatch in the picture. He was in the back in the flames on the other side of the car, about 12 feet behind the car up on the hill. And you can see it in that picture.
Yeah, I think I sent the picture to you. You're welcome to share it if you want.
You're more welcome to share.
Okay. Let me bring it up right quick.
Sure. So you see him standing at the back of the car, those big long arms and those big broad shoulders.
Oh,
He's right there at the back of the car. And the firemen are coming up, running up the driveway towards the car at that time, and then he disappears in the next shot, the Squatch does. And when I was walking down looking for the guy that set the car off, we were going up the creek bed, and I come across some big, huge tracks down in there. I was like, oh boy, I've seen them before. I knew there was a Squatch there, but I never saw him in that picture until later. And after the car explosion, we had a lot of interactions with Sasquatch, and my wife can tell you about them coming down the mountain towards her. They got aggressive. For a while there, I played a game with one of them. I found this arrowhead rock, and I put it on the landscaping timbers near the house next to the woods. And as I come around one day, it was facing the other way towards a gap in the other mountain. I was like, that's interesting. Somebody turned it. So I turned it back towards the house, and then it'd come out the next day and it'd be pointed back towards the mountain again. And then they started stacking rocks on top of that one. They would take that one off, put rocks up, and put an arrowhead rock back on it, point it back towards the mountain. So I would come along with the dog and turn the rock back the other way. And then when I showed my wife this game, the Squatch was playing with me because there were tracks down there, not big ones. They're probably 12, 13, 14 inches long. And she touched the rocks, and when she touched them, the next day they were thrown everywhere. And that Squatch never played that game again.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we've always heard, grunts and tree knocks, and I guess the hollers or
howling,
screaming, late at night or whatever. And I guess some during the day, but mainly in the evening. And,
definitely at night.
After the car explosion, they seemed to get aggressive, very aggressive. They got closer to the house. Like there was one night, there was a tree knock that, it literally felt like it shook the ground I was standing on. I was like, whoa. And we were out walking the dog, so my assumption is they were saying back off. We're getting a little too close. And we've seen where they've taken like logs and laid them out, and in like cross an trails. X, kind of like in an X area. And I'm like, I think that means let's not cross that.
Mm-hmm.
They like that time of the month for me. They have been known to come get really close and aggressive. And if I'm outside by myself, they've been known to run down the side of the mountain towards me. And I was told at one point to kind of holler at them or whatever, and they'll stop. And I've turned around and hollered at them like you would holler at a child. And I'll tell them, hey, that's enough. And it'll kind of stop, and I'll take off and run inside quickly. Or I'll laser, I have a laser that's on my gun, and I'll kind of laser the woods, and it kind of stops them for whatever reason.
They don't like lasers.
So yeah.
So the car explosion, I keeping my identity secret, but I have a business I was being targeted. So I had a team of security guys that guarded us through the night, and there was 4 of them. And I told them, I said, if you see anything, walking around that's real big and hairy, that's just a Squatch, and they're not going to hurt you. And they didn't believe me. They laughed at me. So later that night, about 4 a.m., they're on the radio. They're like, hey, there's something out there, and we could hear them. And I go out there, and they're lighting up the woods, and they heard something tree knocking. Then they heard growling, and they didn't know what it was. So I told them it was probably a Sasquatch, and they're laughing at me again. So the next night they're out there, and I get up in the morning. Remember all the chem lights through the woods? They had broken chem lights everywhere. The security guys did. And they go, you weren't lying about that Sasquatch. That damn thing came down the mountain on the ridge right above them and screamed at him and echoed the whole valley. All 4 of those guys lit up the woods with their lasers and lights and chem lights, and scared the hell out of them.
Like, they will never go back in the woods.
And one of them goes, great, I bow hunt. I ain't bow hunting. I'm going to be a bow hunter from noon to 2. That's it. I'm not going out in the woods. And it's interesting because after they realized what it was, they realized there were several of them up there, and they would interact with them through the night. The Squatches would be coming through the mountain and stuff, and the security team would interact with them with lasers and lights and just make sure they didn't come near the house. But they became believers after that, after coming almost face to face with one. It's pretty interesting.
And I'd sent you another picture too, where I was out front and heard something on the balcony one night, and there was some huffing, and it was just really loud, and I didn't have a flashlight with me, and it was late. My husband was actually already in bed.
That's not the one. That's another one.
No, that's another one actually.
Yeah.
But that one.
Yeah, I don't know why these.
That one actually.
So
that one's the most recent one actually in the last 2 weeks, I guess.
Yeah.
But that one's probably the coolest picture that I've captured of it.
See the lake
because I was out back and heard something, again, husband in bed and on the balcony and on the back balcony, and heard something, something big walking, and didn't have a light with me, and took a picture on night mode with my iPhone and glanced down and saw that, and I was like, whoa. And about that time, within seconds, the whole backside of the property just smelled like a skunk. Skunkish, not so much a skunk, but skunkish.
Like death.
Yeah, just very strong.
So
and
they smell like.
Then I heard something. I don't know if he was carrying something or if that there's a bunch of geese back there right now this time of year, and a bunch of deer, like hundreds of deer back there. And I don't know if he was back there hunting or what, but it was within seconds. But I heard something slam to the ground really loud, and the geese started going crazy and taking off, and then it sounded like it started heading back up towards the house, and that's when the smell got stronger and stronger, and I just backed up and went back in the house. But never have I felt threatened by them until here recently. The other picture that I sent you was out on the front balcony and heard something again late at night. This one was a couple of months ago.
Yep.
And
got that weird creature in the picture.
Yeah, it was some weird noises, and my dog was actually out there with me on that one, and he kept looking, and his hair started standing up, and then I started, when the noise kind of stopped, I heard some huffing, like to some real loud breathing, almost like a deer, but really, really loud and deep. And so I didn't have a light, snatched my phone up and snapped several pictures. And, I'm flipping through the pictures when I go back inside. And I'm like, what was that noise? There has to be something different in these pictures. And sure enough, I see, like, in one of the pictures, I physically see this cat climbing the tree. And then in the next picture, I see the cat thing sitting on a branch. And it was looking over towards the woods across the street. And I captured, I zoom in because I saw something in that picture that the cat was looking at.
There you go.
Yeah.
He's got it right there.
And
that was the picture.
When I zoomed in to whatever the cat was looking at, I was like, whoa. So
that's one of the.
But yeah, up until recently, I've never. Yeah, that's the one with the cat. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely the one with the cat. But I've never felt threatened by them until recently. I'm starting. I don't know. I feel like they're getting aggressive and have never. I mean, I've always felt safe going out in the woods at night. Never knowing they're there. I've just never felt like they would harm me. I mean, I felt like they were the keeper of the woods or whatever, and that they weren't going to cause me any harm if I didn't cause them any harm. I'll stay out of their territory. They stay out of mine. We're all safe and sound. But here lately, they don't seem very happy.
And all of this generated after the car explosion, correct?
Seems like the aggression started after the car explosion for sure.
I think they were worried that car was going to burn their woods down.
Right.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I don't even know that this is really related, but it's about not even a week after the car explosion, was it? That young girl, so where we live, our place dead ends. Of course, we've got water, so we have water source. We've got food source. We've got hundreds of deer and geese and, turkey and whatever. So there was a girl that definitely doesn't belong in the area. Seemed a little shady of what, I don't know. Yeah, she may have been at a party or something.
She was at a party down the street.
This morning, early one morning, like 5:30, 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
My husband goes to leave to go somewhere, and she is sitting at the bottom of our driveway, and her car is torn, destroyed. Yeah, he'll have to tell you more about that because I actually wasn't with him. But
Sasquatch definitely did. It looked like somebody had just something massive destroyed that car. The windows were broke out. The doors were just like shoved in. The hood smashed down on. The trunk all tore up. I mean, like somebody literally rolled that car down the mountain and beat the hell out of it. But it happened right where she parked it.
Like he said she seemed, well, he and
she was scared.
My 14-year-old son both said that she seemed very scared and distraught and like she didn't know what to do. And when they questioned if she was okay, she was just like, I don't know, and then took off. So, yeah. That seemed really, I don't know what happened, and it may not even be related, but it definitely sounds related. I don't know if they thought that she was a threat or maybe she was part of the car explosion, or I don't know, but they definitely weren't happy with something she was doing.
Well, now the car, going back to the car explosion, did that actually happen on y'all's property?
It did.
Yeah, it did. Yep.
And have the police or the authorities showed you anything about, as far as what was the cause of the explosion?
Somebody had deliberately set the car off. There was a 6-volt battery off to the side of the car with lead wires up to it. So the car had a series of explosives inside of it to go off. So the first one blew up the trunk, then the other one blew up the inside of the car, then the engine compartment blew up, caught fire, and it was crazy. Somebody deliberately set it off. They tried finding the individual, couldn't find him. The car was stolen, and it was deliberate.
Okay.
It was directed towards us to get a.
It was somebody was sending a message to me. Somebody not happy with what I was doing.
Oh, okay. Uh, and basically, due to that, they basically upset the Squatch population in your area, and
Oh yeah.
now got them upset with you.
I'll tell you what, before the car explosion, there was a guy down the road there from us. He was burning a bunch of limbs in the woods. And I found him because it was raining ash on our house. I'm like, dang, the woods is on fire or something. So I go down driving around and I go down to the cul-de-sac, the end of the road there, and there's this guy trying to put out this fire with a little garden hose. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're gonna burn the whole joint down. And when I get back to the house, it wasn't even 40 minutes later, and the whole valley is echoing with screams from squatches. They were furious that this thing was out of control and literally raining ash down throughout the whole woods. And I'm talking probably a good 50, 60 acres of ash raining down everywhere. It was crazy. And that guy did finally get the fire out, but people
Wow.
shouldn't be burning up in the woods.
Obviously.
Yeah.
No, most definitely. That that's what I tell everyone that when you go into the woods and these creatures are present, you're in their home.
Yep.
You've left your home, you're in their home, you're in their domain, and
Yeah.
anything that happens does upset these creatures. And I'm really sorry for what y'all are going through because of all this.
Well, I've discovered they don't like lasers, and that seems to keep them away.
Pushes them back for a day or two anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what it is about a laser, but they definitely do not like it. It's unnatural to them, probably.
Well, that's the same way, with we use game cams in our trail cams in the research that we do, and sometimes we'll get lucky and catch a pick on one, but 9 times out of 10 they avoid those things with a plague, like a plague. I mean,
Oh yeah, we have security cameras around our house, and
They avoid them.
They avoid them.
I think they can see them.
If we move cameras,
yeah.
Oh yeah, and if we move one of the cameras, we've caught a glimpse of something odd, but can't ever make it. Is so quick and just.
I think they see the beams on them because I've had them out in the woods back home in upstate New York, and they avoid them like you said. They avoid them like the plague. But we see them back home in upstate New York. Man, they're definitely Squatch up there. Lots of them. We had them on our horse ranch. I encountered them several times bow hunting. I'd come out one night walking my dog, and the dog left me, like whimpered and ran and left me down by the creek bed. And I dragged him back down to the creek bed, and there was something up in a tree across this big willow tree, and it was so heavy it broke the branch, fell into the water, got up. I thought it was a bear, but I never seen no bear run off on 2 legs, so it wasn't a bear. And my dog was scared of it, scared to death of it.
Wow. These things, I don't know what it is as far as the canine's concerned, but most definitely, I've got a small dog here, little Sweeney, that I took out on the expedition with me, and there's been times, man, he goes crazy. I've had him run in the back of the tent. We'd be out in the woods, camp, and he'll run in the back of the tent and carry down. And normally this dog has got the like little dog, big dog syndrome. He normally goes crazy at anything. But when one of these creatures are around, now, man, I don't know what it is, but it scares him to death.
Yep, scared mine too. They thought it was going to eat them or something. They want nothing doing with it.
Mm.
And I wonder that because I actually have had a huge lab that
Weimerland.
Yeah, but anyway, he is the one and only dog that we have that just kind of we let him loose whenever he would go outside, and he would go walk and roam by himself. So he was all in the woods and everywhere else, and nothing ever ate. I mean, there was several times it'd take me a long time to get him back to the house, and I was like, "Oh crap, he got ate." But he'd finally come home, but he shockingly never got eaten. So I don't know. Maybe a dog's not what they want for dinner. I don't know.
I think they'll eat a dog.
I don't know why they never ate him. Maybe he smells as bad as them.
He was bad. He smelled terrible.
Right. I think these creatures will eat anything that don't eat them first.
Yeah, I agree. I believe it.
I don't know. I've kind of always felt at peace with them around until recently. So I don't know.
Well, I don't bow hunt in the dark anymore either.
Don't mind me asking, how long have y'all actually been having? How long have y'all actually been having this problem with the Sasquatch up there?
Well, the problems have been since February.
Yeah.
But as far as them being around, forever.
Yeah.
I mean, they've always been around. But
been aware of them. You see tracks down in, they're like water, creek beds, stuff like that. You'll find their tracks down in there.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Find them on the ridges. You'll rarely see any tracks on top of a ridge. You'll find them below the ridge.
Find them all around our house. All through the yard. If wild berries or whatever, they
like that.
That they like them obviously because
wild strawberries,
like the wild strawberries in the yard. Yeah. There'll be tracks everywhere around those. When my daughter and granddaughter have visited, especially when my granddaughter was a newborn, they would come up literally to the house. Like I've seen tracks like in my pine straw that I have down around in my flower beds and around the house. There's been tracks in the pine straw and on the window.
Their dirty handprint on the window.
Yeah. Like
big handprint on the window.
Massive print on the window where I don't know if they're trying to get to them or.
I think they walk on all fours because there's no way that hand was muddy like that without, climbing or doing something. But it was a big muddy handprint.
But I definitely, told my daughter, hey, you and the baby don't need to be outside by yourself for sure. So, But yeah, I don't know what, maybe the baby crying. I don't know what attracted them so close to the house then either, but.
Could be.
Well, and that's one thing that amazes me about the Sasquatch is for some reason they're actually attracted to children. If you're out in the woods and you've got a your child, for some reason these creatures will seek you out. Not to say that they're trying to hurt the child or anything, but they're very, very curious creatures when it comes to children.
Interesting.
Yeah. Again, that throws the thing in. Are they trying to protect it or I don't know.
Really, I don't know. I know my co-host Blake that's normally on with me. He had a sighting down in Bartow County, which is about 20 miles from our house here.
Yep.
Back in 2011, he actually had a sighting of a family group, and his sighting's actually on the BFRO. But he actually saw a large male Sasquatch, a female, and then just a young juvenile, which he said he would have judged to be probably 4 to 5 years old. And he actually had this sighting early one morning there at the edge of Altoona Lake. He said he was about 75 to 100 yards from the creatures when he first caught a glimpse of them. And he said the male, he said the male threw its head back like it kind of winded him. The female reached down, grabbed the younger one, threw it up on her shoulder. They turned and walked up into the woods, and they were gone, just like they disappeared.
Oh wow!
I bet they were watching him like a hawk.
Oh, I'm sure they was. And as far as the smell that y'all contribute to them there, we've also encountered that down there at the lake. We've encountered it over at a research area we've got in Blue Ridge. and it's one horrendous smell.
It is. It smells like death, like they've been rolling and living in something dead. That's what it smells like.
I don't know. It's
like a dead deer. Freaking.
It's skunkish. I call it a skunk. To me, it smells skunkish.
I think it's
very,
rotten.
very.
It smells rotten.
Very skunkish. I mean, we've been to other people's property, friends or whatever out here in Tennessee, and it never fails. I mean, even during broad daylight, we've been out walking their property or whatever, or hunting or whatever we're doing there, and come across that smell, and I'm like, oh man, is there a skunk nearby?
It's not just the smells; you can see sign of.
I mean, we can get acres and acres and acres away from that. Like if it was a regular skunk, it would have that smell would have already been gone, right?
You see
and
branches,
it's almost like it's following us, and I'm like, oh.
Through the pines on the one property, you can see signs of them where they've broken off all the branches 8 feet up, where they can like move silently through there without making noise. You can tell where they're at. If you pay attention, you'll see where they're at. And there's creek there too.
Well, that's something that amazes me about these. That's something that amazes me about these creatures. Is actually, I found that there's times that I've been in the woods and be there for an hour, 2 hours at a time, and never have nothing happen. And then all of a sudden, you hear a loud crack or a loud limb break, a big stick that's on the ground or a log, whatever, crack. And you turn and you get a glimpse of these things as they're going back into the foliage away from you. And that's just how stealthy these creatures are. They can stand and actually watch you for hours at a time, and you'll never know they're there.
Oh yeah, I've called them out the kitchen window.
Yep.
Constant, I've called them, behind trees, and it's almost like they're playing peekaboo, because I'll stand there in the kitchen and just kind of stare at them, and then I'll sneak outside, and I'm sitting there looking at them, and they'll look at me, and the second they catch me staring at them, they'll kind of slide behind the tree more or whatever, and I'm like, that's crazy. But yeah.
And that's what amazes me, that there's people out there that, for instance, a couple of months ago, I was on an investigation down on Johns Mountain. I talked to a guy there. I won't call any names, but he was, I think he told me he's 74 years old. Well, I got talking to him about Sasquatch. Well, he told me, he said, man, I've been in the woods all my life. He said, I stay 2-3 weeks at a time, turkey hunting, whatever. I've never seen these creatures. And until I do, I won't believe that they exist. So, I told him, I said, well, I hope if you ever see one, that you do have a friendly encounter with him. Because, I've noticed things turning ugly quickly with these things.
Oh, I bet.
They do. I've honestly, I've never believed in them until probably 7 years ago. I have some land in Alabama. I have 120 acres of land there, and nobody, whenever I went out and, was building up a farm and stuff there, nobody had lived on that land, farmed the land, hunted the land, nothing for over 30 years. So I actually had a camera crew back then that was with me and my cousin, and we were walking the property line, marking it out to put up because it had old fallen down, rusted up barbed wire fences or whatever around the property line. So we were walking the property line, marking it, and man, it was thick. I had thick, because it was in the middle of the summer. We're out there with machetes and snake boots up to our knees. So a lot of the stuff, I'm short. And so when I have on my snake boots, if I get in thick stuff, I can barely walk through it, right? Right. Snake boots go above my knees. I literally have people picking me up and throwing me over some of this stuff just to get me through some of the briars and brush. And we stop at one point in the middle. There was a little bitty opening, and we stop, and we're, I got a backpack and stuff on with water and stuff in it, and grab a sip of my water and set my bag down to sit on it. And I look down below me, and I'm like, hey, what are the, who in the hell is out here in these woods barefooted? my cousin looks at me and he starts laughing and he's like, "That's a swamp ape." I said, "A who what?" He said, "It's a swamp ape." And I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's from South Georgia and, he's done a bunch of hikes and stuff and very long hikes. And he was like, "It's a Sasquatch, Trina." And I said, "Oh, okay, yeah." Well, a little while later, we're walking again and come across a bunch of like skeletons and skulls, and it was almost like a little pit next to a dried up riverbank. Maybe a feeding ground. I don't know. There was hog, there was deer, there was something, maybe a bear. But there was all kinds of stuff piled up there and a whole bunch of tracks. And I was like, all right, I may believe you now. Well, lo and behold, if I didn't start seeing them. And had an encounter with, there was a huge log in my way. I was bush hogging around my house, around the back end of my property, and there was a log in the way. I pick it up and I chunk it off into the woods. By the time I made a lap and came back around, how about that log is laying there. Now another log is on top of it and it's X'd off. And I'm like, well, I didn't know anything about it. And I picked it up and I chunked both of them off. Made another lap around, came back, and there it is again. And I was like, what in the world? So I just quit bush hogging. I was like, all right, I'm done. I don't know what's going on, but I'm done. Somebody's playing a game with me. I'm done. I just left it alone. Well, we were out building a lean-to later that evening, and it had gotten dark outside, and that skunkish smell came about again. And I was like, man, what is that smell? My cousin was like, well, it's a Sasquatch. And I was like, what? And then we start hearing noises over, and I grabbed the spotlight and shine it out there, and there's something definitely out there with big, beady red eyes. And I start walking towards it, and I have a gun in my hand, raised up on it the whole time. And I got, I don't know, it didn't seem, I don't know how far away from it I was, but I know I was close enough. I could see it literally blink its eyes, but I could never physically see what it was. All I know is it was big, tall, and I could definitely fit 2 to 3 fists in between its eyes. And my cousin kept telling me, shoot it, shoot it. And I was like, I'm not shooting that. I don't know what it is. I'm not shooting it. He said, well, it's not a human. Shoot it. And I was like, I'm not shooting it.
Good thing you didn't.
Sure enough, I mean, from what I've heard, it's probably a really good thing I didn't. But
all right, Trina, you're talking about the eye shine. What would you say was the distance from the ground to eye level of this thing?
Oh my God. It had to have been at least 10 feet.
Right.
The other thing, because the next day I went out there to that same exact spot, because I was like, maybe there's a tree, maybe there's a tree that's fallen over or something there, or maybe there's an arched limb or something, right? And there was nothing but tall, straight trees. With, how the pine trees get down there, you don't have branches off like you do in that picture you're seeing there, right? You have straight up pine trees. So there's no way there was something sitting on a limb.
Okay, well, the reason I left this picture up, I've got a question for you on this. Looking right about dead center of this picture, maybe just a little above dead center, there appears to be a face in the picture.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Have y'all actually noticed that?
I have.
We did. After looking at it for a while, you can see it.
It's very apish to me.
Right. Me too. I mean, what time of night was this picture actually taken?
What time of night?
Yeah.
Probably about 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah, around midnight.
Oh, okay. And what was the distance from your house to this area where this picture was taken?
I think I sent you the other picture that is zoomed out.
What's the distance to that? Is that down across the road?
Yep, that's across the road.
Across the street, so it's probably, good Lord, 200 yards?
Easy.
About 200 yards.
About 200 yards.
Yep.
Okay.
Because it
We've
was
got
from
another one here.
the balcony to the woods down across the street, and he's actually across the creek there. So I would say it's at least 200 yards.
Wow.
I
So
do have.
these things
Yeah.
are actually getting fairly close to your home.
I actually just sent. Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
That's it. Because you see the cat on that one branch, and you see where it's kind of looking over
And it's down
towards
across
that
the road.
spot.
Yeah.
And if you zoom back in, you see the big shadow over towards the left, towards that other house. And then if you look to the right of it, that's where you see something in the woods there. And then when you zoom in, that's the picture I got when I zoomed in. I was like, whoa. So there's your distance, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I'm not good with that.
Right.
About 200 yards. Maybe 140 yards.
And of course, I'm standing on a balcony looking down.
Okay, so your house actually is across the street from this house, right?
That's right.
Correct.
We're up on a hill. Yep.
Okay. Now I've got a pic here. I want you to explain this. Where was this actually found at? This
about where the
other creature walking across the yard there.
The one walking across the yard towards the lake area out here.
Yep.
That's where I found that. Next morning, matter of fact.
So I took that to our security group, and they're going to do DNA testing on it. But it smells to high heaven when you open that bag.
Oh,
it'll clear a room.
Oh man! So y'all are actually going to have DNA done on this?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Well, when y'all have that done, please, if you don't mind, send me the results of the
I will.
DNA.
I will. I will.
Absolutely. Isn't that interesting?
Oh yes, very interesting. And what I find very interesting about it is the coarseness of the hair.
Yeah. That ain't
what
no
I see in the picture.
Yeah.
It's very, very,
awesome.
very
because
coarse.
Right, and I'm a former taxidermist. I've done taxidermy work for over 20 years, and
oh, wow.
I have mounted most every creature that basically has come out of the United States from African creatures, whatever, or animals, and this is unreal what this hair actually looks like. Because you can actually tell from the hair that it didn't come off a bear.
Nope. No deer.
No deer, no hog, anything, or anything of that nature. So, I'd be very interested in knowing what the DNA results is on this when you get it.
Oh, for sure.
I'm excited to get it. I can't wait.
Now, on gathering this, did y'all actually touch the hair itself, or?
I picked it up. I actually grabbed a pair of gloves and picked it up.
Oh, okay. So your skin, your fingers actually did not come in contact with it, right?
No, sir.
Okay. A little tip on this: when gathering hair evidence like this, or particles of skin or whatever, the best way to do this and store it is take like a small paper bag that like they use for sandwiches or whatever.
Yeah.
Put it in the paper. That seems to work best for me because of the fact that it doesn't it won't sweat, and it won't cause moisture buildup inside the bag.
Oh, that's genius.
Brilliant. I like that.
But y'all have some amazing pics. You have an amazing story of what's going on, and hey, by all means, tell us more.
Yeah, I could tell you a lot of hunting stories where I've encountered them for sure. It scare the hell out of you. I was hunting. We had a place back home in upstate New York, and the creek bed ran through the property twice. And it formed there was a big high ridge that was a big upper field, and around it was all trees, maples and whatnot. So where we crossed with the ATV was down by a bunch of, willows. So we crossed the creek, parked the ATV there, and we go to the sanctuary to hunt. And, we get up in the sanctuary. We're up above, we're probably 60 feet above the creek bed below, and we're level with the field where the deer come out. So we hear this brush, like something shaking trees like this. We're like, what the hell is that? So we look down below us, and you can see these trees swaying back and forth, young trees, probably 10, 12 feet high, these young maple trees, just shaking them back and forth. And it's in this thick stuff, and it starts growling and snarling and making all kinds of noise. And then it goes down towards the ATV, and I'm like, oh, hell no. Whatever that is, it ain't going to mess with my ATV. So we start sneaking back down the ridge. When we get to the ATV, this thing's gone. In front of the ATV is a huge branch, probably 12 feet long, of a maple tree laid right on top of the ATV on the front basket, the front rack. And there ain't no maple trees there. So I'm like, what the hell did this? And I didn't know of them. Like, I believed in them kind of, sort of, but I didn't know what they were at the time. This is before I encountered them face to face. And, they're very interesting. They're very sneaky, stealthy. I've had them throw rocks at me while I'm bow hunting, pebbles, pebbles throwing them at me. And I'm like, who the hell's throwing rocks at me? And I'd turn around and look across the creek, and down in the brush, you can see shadows of things in there, but you really can't make out what it is. And, I get down and go see if it's the kids, my kids messing with me or something, and there's nothing there. Nobody. I've encountered them so many times. I'll tell you the creepiest encounter. I had 2 creepy encounters with them. I was putting trail cameras out down back by the beaver dam, very thick area. You could be wearing blaze orange and be 10 feet from me and never see me. And so we're down in there, and I'm putting trail cameras up. My buddies are on the other side of the hill from me, so they're probably 100 yards away from me. And I get down near the beaver dam. There's a big beaver pond back in there. And I hang a camera up, and I hear this whoop. And I'm like, what the hell was that? And it was towards the beaver pond. So I was like, oh, hell no. So the hair on the back of my neck standing up, and behind me, 20 yards off to me, a big whoop, like whoop. And it scared the hell out of me. And I was like, what the hell was that? So I run for the ATV, jump on it, and take off. And that was one incident of them. And the other was I went back down in there the next day with guns. I wasn't going with just my knife. I took a gun down in there. And I'm sneaking through there, and I get to the beaver pond, and there's a huge opening where the beavers flooded that pond out and all that. And across the beaver dam is a blanket, like somebody had a picnic, and it was all laid out. There was a dress laid right in the middle of it, chairs, like somebody had left in a hurry. And you can tell they left in a hurry. Every chair was tipped over, and you could see up through the trail where people were running and falling and whatnot. So I asked Donnie Miller back home, I go, Donnie, do you know who's been trespassing on my property? And he goes, dude, you got Sasquatches out there. I go, what the hell are you talking about? He goes, my buddy was down there. I said he could go swimming down there in that beaver pond, and some creature came up out of the water and scared him off. And I'll tell you, it's an eerie feeling there with all that stuff there. So I grabbed all their crap, dragged it out of the woods, and got it out of there. But there were several sightings of Sasquatch there down by the river, down the river trails. They had these walking trails. And
Right.
People had seen them and encountered them down in there. Scared the hell out of them.
Man, I don't know what it is about Sasquatch, but, those things, they love to stay around water.
Yes,
if there's a water source, 9 times out of 10, if you got a water source, you got good food source, you're going to find them.
Well, that's what we're seeing here. Got a lake out back. We're probably 100, 200 yards from the lake. I'd say more than that. It's probably 300 yards to the lake. But it's all, goes straight to the lake. It's all woods. There's nothing near there, just deer and geese and all kinds of stuff down there by the lake. And you see tracks of them. She's got a picture of one there she showed you, that one creeping through the night. And,
Right.
You definitely know they're down there. You'll hear them whoop. They'll do that whoop. They whistle. They do all kinds of crazy stuff down there.
I've had, just a couple of nights ago.
The problem with that grass there is that Bermuda grass, they're not going to leave good tracks. You have to really look for them. Like you can see her foot to it.
You can see the whole outline of the foot area there, and
we're
smashed down toes and all. And man, it's just amazes me about these things. How the sheer size of these creatures, and they can actually stay. They can actually stay hid if they want to, and not even be aware of them.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's what I worry about. Is walking down there by the lake and go by a bush and one will snatch me or something. You never know.
No, hey man, you really don't. You really don't.
And I don't go outside by myself day or night. Here recently, since I've been on my, whenever I go on my girl thing, I'm kind of I make sure he's with me, or I'm packing, or something, because it just they go nuts.
Two important things to have at night is a laser on your gun and a very bright light. That will keep you safe, believe it or not. Not so much the gun, it's the laser and the lights, the bright lights.
Well, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've never really thought about the laser, but I guarantee you that I'll have one packed in my shoulder bag the next time I go out.
Yeah, you laser the woods, you won't see a peep of one. You won't even hear a noise or nothing. I don't know what it is. I wonder if it just seems unnatural to them to see it going through the woods, or it messes with their vision and they don't like it. But
I think it does. I think it goes back to, what we were discussing earlier about the trail cams. I think it's the infrared light in the trail cams that they can actually see these things and avoid them. And the same way with the light and the laser.
Yeah.
They avoid the security lights.
Yeah.
They may set it off, but they don't.
Yeah. We had these reactive sentry cameras we put out for bad people, not squatches. But once in a while, a Sasquatch would set one of those off because they would enter the beam and trigger it, and it would siren and start streaming video, and you'd catch just a glimpse of one in it. That's it. Just a split second of one in the frame. That's it.
This is really amazing at all the stuff y'all have going on up there.
A lot of them. People, my buddy who works for me, he didn't believe in them at all until the security guys told him about them, their encounter with them at our place. And then he started paying attention. Well, he's sitting in his easy chair one day and he was just watching TV during lunch. And one knocked on a tree outside his house and scared the hell out of him. And he called me on the phone. He goes, something just knocked on a tree out back, like a big slam of a log against a tree. And I was like, well, probably it's a Squatch. So he told his kids about the tree knock. Well, his kids went out and they got a beautiful picture of a Sasquatch track. And then the Squatch started leaving them gifts out behind his barn, like big piles of walnuts. And then he was working in his shed one day, and a rock hit the top of his roof, a big rock. It scared the hell out of him. And then he went outside and looked and went back in again, and another rock, boom, hits the top of the roof of the shed.
Yeah, I've been out hiking and had like big boulders go flying through the air out of nowhere. And I'm like, yeah, well, I guess it's time for me to take a different route.
Remember that big rock they threw at me and my dog? Remember that?
Oh, yeah. They've thrown rocks at him when he's been out walking the dog.
Big rocks, not pebbles.
Yeah, like big boulder stones.
Well, I'll tell you an encounter that Blake and I had a few years back. We were down at the cemetery in Bartow County, and Blake and I also do paranormal investigation, and we were
Yep.
down there that night doing some paranormal research, and we were under this tree about midways of the old cemetery. And cemetery is like probably 2.5, 3 miles off the main road down to where the cemetery is. Road dead ends. You know,
Yep.
no other way in, just one way in, one way out. We were about midways of the cemetery that night underneath this big elm tree, and we were standing there. Blake was talking, and then all of a sudden, there's a rock the size of a basketball comes through the treetop and lands in between us. Well, I wheel around with my light, and I get to shining, and we're like 60 yards from the wood line.
Wow.
Out in the middle of the cemetery. Then all of a sudden, another rock comes and lands about the same size. It ended up like 4 or 5 of those things landing in an area like maybe 3 to 4 feet between us, but never once did it hit us.
You're lucky.
Now, can you imagine the sheer strength these things has got to possess?
Oh,
for them to be able to do that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
unreal.
incredible. Well, I'll tell you what you find. You know, we had Sasquatch nests back home. We'd find them going way out in the woods. You find these huge woven tree limbs and stuff together, like saplings. They weave them together, make these big like nest-like things. And you'll find on the way out there, there's trees, you know, probably 3-inch, diameter trees, ripped up by their roots and shoved upside down in an X. And I'm like, what the hell did that? And I'll tell you another creepy hunting story. So they call these sanctuaries back home, like you're not supposed to hunt in them, but I hunted in it anyways. And I moved my tree stand out into one. So it was a depression in a water area next to a creek, a lot of flood water back in there and stuff. Great for bow hunting. So I put my climber up in there, and it's facing a field. So there's like a little valley between me and the field. I'm on the same level as the field when I'm up in my climbing stand. So we had cut a hole into the field through the brush big enough so I could shoot through it, a shooting lane. And we had a trail up in there. So I had the little tree next to me that was probably 4 inches in diameter. I had my bow hook on it. So I come out the next morning, and I come out the other side of the property. I drive around the block, and I start walking down this field, and it's a hay field. And you see these 5 huge depressions in the hay where something was laying in it, 5 of them, and they were pretty big. I go to look for the shooting lane to go into my trail to get down to my stand. The shooting lane's gone. I'm like, where the hell is the shooting lane? We just cut this thing. So I go back towards the edge of the ridge, and I climb down in there, and I come back up the trail that we had cut, and there's this huge treetop shoved into the hole. And then I go to my stand. I'm like, shoot, I'm getting up in my stand because now I'm kind of creeped out. So I climb up in my climber. That tree that was next to me was snapped off at 12 feet up, snapped right off, like something snapped it like it was nothing. That was the top of the tree shoved into the hole up above. I waited for daylight, got all my stuff, and left. I was like, in my stand. I was like, I'm out of here. Because those things could kill me. They could have killed me out there if they wanted to.
And I've got a question for you, for y'all. And a lot of people report having interactions with these creatures with what they consider to be mind speak, or they have interactions with them where they've had missing time,
Nope.
things of this nature. Have y'all had anything like this occur?
No, sir. Nope.
I don't
Okay.
know.
Never had that.
Well, I've been doing this, like I said, for 40 years. I had one encounter back a few years ago. I was hunting in South Georgia. I had an encounter where we were at camp on like Friday night, I think it was, at deer camp. And I started getting this weird deal. It kind of felt like somebody talking to me, telling me to leave. And
Wow.
I just kind of bloated off. Well, the next day, 4 or 5 different times I had the same thought occur. You leave now. And along about 8 o'clock that night, I packed up and left.
Yeah.
And the very next week, I had a friend of mine that lives in that area down there called me, and he asked me if I'd had any interactions with the authorities while I was down there over the weekend. I told him no, I hadn't seen any. And he said, about 2 miles from where y'all were camped at on Sunday of that same week, they actually found a young lady's body down there where somebody had murdered her and thrown her out.
Oh,
And,
my gosh.
So this is something that that I've actually experienced. I had with it, and I don't know, if that was actually mind speak. These creatures,
Right.
warning me to get out of the area or what. I don't know, but now I've had a lot of people that I've interviewed that has actually had dealings like this with them, and then a lot of people blow it off as being crazy when people talk about this. So.
Well, no, I did have I felt like, I told you in one of our messages before that kind of semi got ran off from my property, out in Alabama where my kids and we were out there by ourselves. This is before I met my husband, and it was just us at that point. And my oldest son and I both felt like something kept telling us to go. We needed to leave. And anyway, we finally took note to it and left. And lo and behold, probably, I don't know how long it was. It wasn't long after that somebody actually broke into my home there.
Yep. Crack addict.
Yeah, and ended up murdering, like, where that property is, there's the closest store is 20 miles away. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
The closest town, the feed store doesn't even, I went to use my debit card one day in there, and he's like, do you have cash? Because we have dial-up. Your card may or may not work. So they don't even have like high-speed internet or nothing like that. I know me getting online at my own house would have to be at 2 o'clock in the morning, sitting in the middle of my bed. That was the only place I got internet, and the only time I got internet. So the phone service, everything out there is null and void. So for this individual to break into my home was obviously odd. And then he actually, about 5 miles through the back end of my woods, there was obviously a cabin and a family that lived out there, and he murdered all 5 of those people. And actually used some of my, he actually used an axe that was at my barn, because I had authorities call me, and they were like, hey, because we went back out to my property to get some stuff, and when I pulled up, I noticed my house had been broken into, so I called the authorities. Took them 45 minutes to get there, and the 911 dispatch was like, hey, if you feel threatened or feel like they're still in your home, stay inside of your vehicle. And I said, look here, woman, I ain't staying in my vehicle. I'm packing. So you might as well tell the officer I'm packing. So if he comes up and sees some little blonde-headed lady, I'm running around with a gun, that's me. Don't shoot me. So I, approached the home and went through the home. Nobody was there. I could definitely tell my house had been demolished. And I was like, man, this looks like a crackhead. The stuff that they had, torn up in my house, and allergy medicine. And I was like, wow, this is great. Well, this axe was, I have a old early 1900 barn out there that I'd refurbished. And I have old tools that was found on the property that we hung up on the inside of this lean-to barn. And they had an axe. I'd actually taken some of the tools and refurbished them to actually be able to use. And one of them was an axe. And it was stabbed in the side of my barn. And I thought, well, that's kind of creepy and odd. And so when the officer got there, I actually told him about it. I was like, maybe you can take that and get fingerprints. I don't know. And sure enough, the officer called me literally, 2 days later and was like, hey, that axe at your house that was at the barn, do you mind if I go out to your property and get it? And I said, no, go on ahead and get it. And he called me back, and sure enough, the axe was gone. But they found the axe, and they found the guy and all that. But anyway, yeah, long story short, my son and I both felt like it was the Sasquatches that were there telling us to get out, like they were trying to protect us.
Right. Well, that's like I said. That's what I've encountered with them, and these things they're amazing creatures. And like I said, I had my first sighting with these things back in 1981. I, like most people my age, back at that time, had saw the Patterson-Gimlin film from back in 1967. That was my first interaction with Sasquatch. Well, that and my grandfather was full-blooded Cherokee, and of course, while I was growing up, my granddaddy talked about these creatures, but they felt that they were watchers of the woods.
Right.
That they were a creature to be revered, and that's how I still feel about them myself, even these years, many years. Wow. Excuse me, many years later. All right, folks, we've reached the hour mark here. I'm going to close the show down. Trina, Robert, thank you very much for being our guest tonight.
Thank you, Rick.
Hey, anytime, Trina, anytime y'all want to come back on, share anything else that's happening there around your property, just hit me up on Messenger, and we'll be more than grateful to have you back on.
All right,
Awesome.
Absolutely.
You have a blessed night.
You too. Thank y'all. Good night, everyone. Big hand to Robert and Tarina for sharing their story tonight. Very good pics from their area up there. Again, this is Middle Tennessee. Folks, anytime you're in the woods, be careful, watch out, be mindful of your area, be mindful of what's in your area. Good night, everybody. And again, I hope everyone liked the program tonight. If you liked it, subscribe, hit the like, let YouTube know if you like our content. God bless everyone, and good night.